He didn't fire me. He didn't yell. He didn't even say my name. But when I walked into that boardroom after just 1 week away, I knew something had shifted. It wasn't in the air. It wasn't in the people. It was in the silence. The kind that doesn't whisper change, but dares you to question if it ever welcomed you at all. I'm Maren Doyle, 21 years in this company. I wasn't flashy. I didn't build my career on politics or noise. I built it on systems, quiet ones that worked, that kept things running when others flinched. I never needed applause. I just needed my work to speak for itself. And for a while, it did. Until it didn't. Until someone new walked in, someone who saw quiet as weakness and competence as a threat. His name was Colby Nash. He came dressed in confidence and empty reassurances. I didn't know it at the time, but his first words to me would be the last I'd hear for weeks. Because he wasn't trying to work with me. He was trying to erase me, quietly, efficiently, like I was an outdated system. But what he didn't know, what no one knew, was that I never stopped watching. And when you build the foundation, you always know where the wires are buried, and when to pull them. The moment I stepped off the elevator, I knew the warmth was gone. It wasn't anything obvious, no dramatic confrontations, no hostile glances, but the atmosphere had changed. The people I used to share deadlines and bad coffee with barely looked up when I walked past. Some nodded politely. Others turned back to their screens like I was someone from a different floor, a different time. 1 week, that's all it took. While I'd been away, the office I knew had started learning to forget me. Colby Nash had arrived during my absence. He was introduced through a sterile company-wide email as our transformational leader for a new era. The message was full of buzzwords. It said nothing, but it said enough. Our previous director, Leonard Shaw, had retired without fanfare. Just a quiet farewell lunch and a box of binders left on his desk. Leonard wasn't warm, but he was fair. He knew people, and more importantly, he knew how to let them lead without pushing them off balance. I wasn't his favorite, but he trusted me. Trusted the systems I built, the people I trained, the late nights I stayed behind when no one else would. Colby was the opposite. He didn't speak to me in the hallway, not even a nod. Just passed by like I was part of the wallpaper. At first, I made excuses for him. New job, unfamiliar team, maybe a bit socially awkward. But excuses only work until the evidence stacks too high to ignore. By Monday, the staff meeting I had led every week for the last 3 years had a new face at the front. His. Shorter. Sharper. My name wasn't mentioned once. When I offered a suggestion, he cut me off with a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "I know how things were under Shaw, Maren," he said in that polished tone of his, "but we're optimizing now. Speed is everything." The room went quiet, not in protest, in agreement, or maybe in surrender. Wednesday brought the first cut. 2 of my largest client portfolios, ones I'd nurtured from day one, were reassigned. No explanation, no acknowledgement. They were just gone. I wasn't being let go. I was being unhooked, quietly, systematically, one process at a time, one access level at a time. That afternoon, I stood by the window overlooking the city. My reflection stared back, calm but coiled. I've always believed in restraint, but that doesn't mean I don't recognize a threat when I see one. And this wasn't about performance. This wasn't about restructuring. This was a purge. And the worst part was, I was the only one who noticed. The email from HR came late Thursday. Just a generic subject line, "Audit done. Q3 alignment review," with a PDF attachment that detailed updated compensation expectations and role-specific realignment. It didn't even use my name until the 3rd paragraph. It said my salary would be reduced by 35%, effective immediately. No conversation, no warning, just a line in a document. I read it twice, then again, slower. I didn't feel anger, not yet. Just stillness. A cold kind of understanding. It wasn't just a pay cut. It was a message. And it wasn't meant for me alone. Friday morning, the company gathered for what Colby called a quarterly pulse meeting. The conference room was unusually full. People arrived early, tapping nervously on phones or pretending to scroll emails. I walked in and took my usual seat. 3rd from the left, 1 chair away from the window. No one looked at me, not directly, just vague nods, flickers of recognition quickly swallowed by silence. Colby stepped in 5 minutes late, crisp in a tailored suit, sleeves rolled just enough to suggest he was casual, commanding, at ease. "Let's keep this short," he said, adjusting the cuff of his shirt as the projector screen lit up behind him. Slide 1. Numbers, forecasts, growth charts. He clicked through them, like flipping pages in a magazine. Nothing stuck. Then slide 2. "To ensure consistency across teams," he began, "we've reevaluated compensation across key roles." He clicked. My name appeared. "Marin Doyle's salary will be adjusted by 35%, effective immediately," he said, voice even, smooth. A pause, sharp and intentional. "This change aligns with departmental benchmarks and reinforces our expectations around forward-focused leadership." He never looked at me, not once. Then, like it was a casual afterthought, he added, "Marin was a key part of Leonard Shaw's tenure. We respect that chapter, but this is a new one, and we won't lead from the past." He moved to the next slide. My name was gone. I sat there, spine straight, hands flat in my lap. Around me, the room absorbed it. Some people stole glances in my direction. Others stared at the screen, pretending to read. No one said anything. Not even the ones who used to lean on me for help at 6 p.m. when their dashboards failed. The silence said enough. I waited until the last slide clicked off, then slowly pushed my chair back. The scrape of metal on tile echoed louder than I expected. No one moved. No one followed. I didn't speak. I didn't need to. My voice wouldn't have made a dent in that wall of compliance. I walked out of the room and down the corridor I once helped design in the early renovation phase. Optimizing light, team flow, break room spacing. No one would remember that now. Back at my desk, the screen waited, black, blinking softly. I logged in. The system welcomed me, because it knew me. Every security protocol, every logic string, every audit trail. Not because I was just a user, because I was the architect. I built the very infrastructure they depended on, the system that linked client workflows, budget approvals, operations routing. Colby had assumed I was just another name on an org chart. But the system? It knew better. It didn't reject me. It paused, like it was holding its breath, waiting for instruction. And inside that quiet, something inside me moved. I didn't plan revenge, but I did start watching. And the system started blinking. It started small, Monday morning, 9:17 a.m. A routine wire transfer to a vendor in Dallas stalled in the processing queue. The amount, $8.20 million, hovered mid-process with no error message, no confirmation, just a quiet, endless, pending loop. 10 minutes later, another transaction froze. Then another, and then another. By 9:26, 4 global payments totaling nearly $10 million were trapped in system purgatory, untouched by human hands, unbothered by commands. No red flags, no alerts. Just stillness. I didn't move. At first, no one even noticed, but it didn't take long. One analyst on the tech floor tilted her head at her screen, tapped her mouse twice, then frowned. Another stood up, walked over to a neighboring desk. Soon there were 6 of them, hunched over the same dashboard, whispering, typing faster. "It's looping back," someone muttered. "No flags, no overrides, no logic errors. It just won't release." They rebooted. They toggled user permissions. They reset the queues. But the system didn't respond. Not because it was broken, because it was waiting. You see, what Colby never understood, what most people never bothered to ask, was that I hadn't just helped build our internal architecture. I'd protected it. Months before he arrived, during a period of rapid, careless expansion, we'd nearly lost a 7-figure account due to an overlooked vendor review chain. That's when I began writing the silent safeguards, invisible thresholds, logic checks buried beneath interface layers, cascading protocols designed not to crash the system, but to freeze it if trust was violated, if approvals were bypassed, if escalations happened without sign-off, if money moved faster than ethics. The system wouldn't fail. It would pause, firmly, quietly, just like me. That morning, 5 warning nodes had activated, and unless someone with full architecture level clearance manually cleared each one, the entire operational workflow would remain locked. No lights, no sirens, just a quiet refusal to obey. I sat there, watching the ripples spread across the floor. Chairs scraping, headsets being yanked off, voices rising. James from infrastructure was already sweating through his shirt, bouncing between terminals like he was defusing a bomb. 2 interns hovered nervously behind him, one holding a Red Bull, the other mouthing silent prayers to the loading bar. I didn't intervene. I just kept documenting. At 10:03, Colby stormed out of the glass war room, headset half on, barking into the air. "I don't care what it takes. Override the damn thing. Move the money." His eyes scanned the floor and landed on me. He pointed. "Marin, you still have back-end access." I nodded once, calm. "Then fix it." I looked him square in the face. "I didn't break it." He stepped closer. "You know what I mean. Reset the flow." I didn't blink. "This isn't an error," I said. "This is protection. I warned leadership 6 months ago. If you cut validation chains, the system would self-stabilize." Self-stabilize? "It waits," I said, "until someone who understands the architecture tells it it's safe to continue." His jaw clenched. But I didn't give him time to argue. I turned back to my monitor, where the soft blinking continued, steady, silent, faithful. Inside the war room, I could hear someone spill coffee while shouting about missing confirmations. A chair tipped over. Phones started ringing again. Every new attempt only confirmed one thing. They were locked out, all of them. The system wasn't punishing them. It was just doing what I designed it to do, refused to operate under chaos. Colby stormed back into the conference room, slamming the glass door so hard it shivered. I didn't flinch. I opened a new secure note and began logging everything. Timestamps, escalation failures, unauthorized reroute attempts, and how precisely, perfectly, all 5 safety protocols had activated within 23 minutes of one another. I didn't gloat. I didn't say I told you so, because this wasn't about proving anything. This was about showing them what happens when they erase the person who knew how the machine worked. Not through noise, but through presence. Because real power isn't the ability to press a button, it's knowing when not to, and watching everyone else realize how many blind clicks away they are from disaster. The system freeze didn't make headlines. It didn't need to. It made the boardroom. By Tuesday morning, Colby had been summoned upstairs, to the 31st floor. That level wasn't for everyday meetings. That was where glass walls met polished oak tables, where silence wasn't passive. It was judgment. I wasn't invited. Of course not. But buildings like ours have a way of breathing. Stories rise, conversations leak. Truth travels fastest when people are trying hardest to contain it. By 10:42 a.m., I received a one-line message on my phone. "Marin, can you step into my office?" No subject, no emotion, just necessity. 5 minutes later, I stood outside his door. He was already standing, arms crossed, but not in control. It was the posture of a man trying to fill the room he no longer owned. He didn't motion toward the chair. He didn't offer coffee. He just nodded once. I shut the door. "I know things have been tense," he began, voice lower than usual. "This whole freeze, it's hurting us. Our clients are anxious. The board's alarmed." I said nothing. "We've reconsidered your compensation," he added quickly. "We can restore your original salary, maybe even increase it, retroactively." Still, I stayed silent. He shifted. "I think we both want the same thing, stability, forward progress. Let's put the past behind us." I met his eyes, finally. "I don't want more money, Colby." He blinked. "I want respect." That word landed harder than any demand. Because it was the one thing he couldn't control, couldn't fake, couldn't buy back. The silence stretched. Then I turned. My hand reached for the door. But before I left, my fingers hovered over the small touchscreen panel beside the light switch, an unassuming square built into the wall, visible to no one, unless you were looking for it. One tap. Recovery protocol engaged. The system would begin its reset sequence. Not a rollback, not a wipe, just a return to order. One module at a time, like slow breath after panic. The transactions would release, confirmations would fire, backlogs would clear, and no one would ever quite know what I'd done, only that it worked. "I'm not here for revenge," I said as the door clicked shut behind me. "I just needed them to remember who kept the gears from locking." Underscore 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 underscore. That afternoon, the energy in the building shifted. It wasn't panic anymore. It was hush. The kind of quiet that comes not from peace, but from awareness. People saw me now, not all at once, not with praise, but with understanding. The ones who once looked through me now looked away, like they weren't ready to admit they'd made peace with my erasure. At 2:17 p.m., I passed the break room and overheard two managers whispering near the fridge. "She built the logic core herself?" one said. "No one else even knew where the failsafes were. She told them, months ago. They didn't listen." By Wednesday, word had reached every floor. What they'd dismissed as legacy code had become their lifeline. And Colby? He didn't look at me anymore. Not with that smug confidence, not even with contempt. He avoided eye contact altogether, but others watched, not with pity, not admiration, something quieter, recognition. The meeting minutes from the board review leaked by Thursday morning. I didn't have to search for them. They arrived anonymously in my inbox. It was all there. The payment backlog, the failed overrides, Colby's admission that he didn't fully understand the system's logic flow, his failed attempt, 3 times, to force an unlock, his inability to name the author of the architecture until cornered, his silence when asked for the override keys, and the final comment, the one no one could forget. Mr. Langston, board chair, reportedly closed his folder, looked directly at Colby, and said, "You removed the one person who built the engine keeping this company running. Then you begged her to fix it. You thought that was leadership." There was no response. None recorded. None needed. That same afternoon, I received a message from someone I hadn't heard from in over a year. Tessa Merrick. She used to sit 3 rows behind me. Junior project analyst. Eager but overlooked. I'd helped her with her first cross-functional task force, back when no one else had time for her. She was smart, observant. She just needed air. Now she had it. Interim Director of Strategy. Colby had been reassigned, quietly, to our Greenville satellite office. Population 32,000. 1 floor. No executive authority. No glass boardrooms, just silence. No one talked about it. No internal memo. No announcement. But everyone knew. He wasn't removed. He was erased. And the person they tried to erase was still here. Later that evening, Tessa's message popped up again. Just a few lines. "I wouldn't be here without you. Thank you for showing me how to lead when no one else did. They're finally seeing it now." I stared at the words for a long time before replying. Lead with clarity. That's all the power you'll ever need. 2 days after Colby was reassigned, a new email arrived in my inbox. No apology, no acknowledgement. Just a subject line. Advisory opportunity, flexible terms. They wanted me back. Project-based, high compensation, total autonomy, the kind of offer they reserve for people they don't know how to replace, but are too proud to admit they need. I didn't respond, because they still didn't understand. It was never about money. That afternoon, I walked 3 blocks to a cafe I used to love before everything turned transactional. It was small, quiet, with mismatched chairs and foggy windows that caught the afternoon sun just right. I ordered a black coffee, sat in the corner, and opened my laptop. The screen blinked on, not with the company logo I'd once stared at every morning, but with something entirely mine. Doyle Core Systems, a name I never thought I'd say out loud, a platform I'd been building slowly, piece by piece, over long nights and quiet weekends. Not for revenge, not even for escape, just in case. In case I ever needed something that belonged only to me. Now it did. The dashboard lit up with a new message. BNR Logistics. Phase 1. I froze for a second. BNR had been one of our oldest, highest-grossing clients. 6 years of integrations, migrations, audits. I'd led every phase of their last system overhaul. I remembered the CFO pulling me aside once, after a 1 a.m. call. "If you ever go solo, you have our business. Just say the word." At the time, I thought he was being polite. Apparently, he wasn't. 2 more client messages landed within the hour. Then a signed NDA. Then a video call request from someone I hadn't spoken to since the pandemic. They weren't following the company anymore. They were following me. Not because I'd marketed myself, not because I was loud, but because they remembered who made the machine run. There was no assistant managing my calendar, no glossy nameplate on a polished desk, just me, a laptop, a clean slate, and enough sunlight to make the screen hard to read. And still, I'd never felt more powerful, not because I'd won, because I'd stopped needing to. When they stripped away the title, the salary, the meetings, the room, I still had the one thing they couldn't engineer: credibility, not in the form of applause, but in the shape of impact. My phone buzzed again, a final message from someone still stuck in the old office. "They're still trying to figure out how you wired those protocols. Someone called you the blueprint." "Thought you'd want to know?" I didn't reply. Some acknowledgments don't need responses. They just need space to land. Outside, the wind moved slow. No tension, no chase, just motion. Purposeful. I opened a new blank document, titled it Client Onboarding Week 1. This wasn't a comeback. It was a beginning. The company sent one more update before the weekend. It came buried at the bottom of the org chart changelog, like a footnote. Effective immediately, Colby Nash will be transitioning to regional operations leadership in Greenville. I read it twice. Greenville. Population 30,000. A satellite branch with no boardroom, no pressure, no audience. It wasn't punishment. It was erasure. Just enough dignity to save face, not enough relevance to regain authority. I didn't celebrate. I didn't smile. Some defeats don't come with noise. They arrive in silence, through reassigned roles and empty inboxes. But make no mistake, it was a fall. And what surprised me more than his exit? His replacement? Tessa Merrick. Quiet, sharp, dismissed by most. I'd mentored her because I saw something in her, something familiar. The ability to listen before acting, to understand before speaking. Now, she had the title. And from the way the message was phrased, unanimous board approval, it was clear. They finally understood what kind of leadership they'd ignored. Tessa messaged me that evening. "They're realizing now what they should have seen then. I wouldn't be here without you." I replied simply, "Lead with clarity. That's all the power you'll ever need." No applause, no spotlight, no plaque on a wall, just quiet. And sometimes that's louder than anything.